We just getting ready, man. We just getting ready. Just give me 1 second, family. Just getting everything set up. Getting everything set up. So much that up. And I'm transportation of raw material. Yeah.
I feel trapped like a rat chasing cheese. My reality is really all make believe. I cannot conceive living days of my dreams. I've been traumatized by the days I have seen on my bended knee. Hope that God intervenes, but if He don't, you know it's nothing new to me. There may never be a resting place for a G. So I'm on my feet in these streets where I'm needed. When they left me alone, that thought alone had me heated on them cold nights. Under bright street lights where my head rests. Life lessons, not knowing where my next is. What I
Yo. 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 Yo, what's up, Empress? Yo. Yo. Yes. What's up? Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Sorry about that. Peace, everybody. Hold on. Oh, okay. But I want to share. I want to share. You should get your pen. You know, you can share this with your kids. It's a good lesson. A good lesson. You know, it's especially about finances, but dealing with it in a biblical way. And you can just write some notes and just see what it's about. That's what he said. He said, give you 2 seconds for you. You want to record this. Okay. All right. So, yeah, I'm going to give a second. Oh, boy, said he want to record it. But anyway, I just want to give a little biblical lesson. You know, just talk about a little finances and ownership. And as we, how can I say, get into our right age, having a conversation of, you know, purchasing things and taking that opportunity to do things, but also look at, how can I say it, ownership per se. You know what I'm saying? Excuse me, hold on. But when I talk about ownership and I talk about conglomerates and real solutions, that's the whole aspect of what I'll be talking about with the action behind what you know and putting money behind things and using your finances to do some things that you want to do, because it's always going to take some finances. to do anything. But I want to talk about some things, and especially for my people that may research the Bible and may not, how can I say it, research the Bible to get into a fallacy or a belief system or whatever it may be. But from my perspective, I want to pull some things out of the scripture that's universal, that everybody can take, that everybody can look at and say, these are keys. So it's like if you taking college classes, or if you learning a specific subject at hand, and the subject at hand that we're going to talk about specifically or in the context of finance and ownership, and see how can we relay that biblically. If you can relay that biblically and show some realistic things, then you can use that tool. You see, that's all. And there's some lessons in these scriptures that everyone can take as tools. And if that's the key, it's universal. Let's see if you're ready. You ready, bro? I'm sorry, y'all. I'm taking my time because somebody wanted to record this and have it on their database. And I give gratitude for you too, brother, for taking the time to record these teachings and share them on your page. So I said this is a lot of new things that's happening. I give gratitude for those that reached out and wanted to do this. But yeah, in scripture, you hear the so-called creator or whatever identifying or using almost 250 names to describe that essence, right? So when we talk about money compared to Lord per se, which is the study that I'm going to speak on today, you know, how we view God, money, is how we live, you know, and you can take certain lessons if you know how to use them, if you're looking at it that way, for that specific healing, and use it as a comparison or analogy, you know, all right? Remember in the biblical scripture how Job, you know, after losing all his possessions per se, able to worship God because he knew his role, you know, that's what they say, the story of the possessions. You know, these stories, why did Moses forsake the treasures of the Egyptians and choose to suffer with the people of God per se? We're just painting pictures, but when you can take these things and start looking at them as tools, when the eye changed from hate to love to lessons, these is how you can speak of these things and become a body. So we talk about ownership. So when I speak on the ownership, I speak in a manifestation of management. If I'm managing something, I want to leave it in good hands when someone takes it over. You know? So when we know that the creator is the orchestrator and the owner of everything, it's no problem to deal with Deuteronomy 10 and 14 and Psalms 24 and 1. You know? And when people say scripture and they believe in things, and I say, well, what are we talking about? Are we talking about all things or some things? Because certain scripture says in Leviticus 25 and 23 identifies him as the owner of all lands, and the land shall not be permanently, for the land is mine, and all these things. Haggai 2 and 8. He owns the precious metals, the silver is mine, gold is mine, declares the Lord of hosts. Psalm 50, we are told the Creator owns the animals. Every beast of the forest is mine. The cattle, thousands of hills, everything is mine. It moves in the field is mine. If we hungry, I would not tell you, for the world is mine, and all it contains. Psalms 50, 10, and 12. So if we just say anything, if we say we don't believe in things, I'm not talking to those individuals or trying to have that debate with anyone. I don't have any interest in debating anyone on any specific topic. We're using these for reference. But the Lord creating all things, and he never transferred the ownership of his creation to people. So when you read Colossians 1 and 17, it says, in him all things hold together. And at this very moment, the Creator holds everything together by his power. We set the precedent, that's all. And as we will see through this little study, recognizing the ownership, recognizing the Creator's ownership is crucial in allowing that to become the whole essence, the so-called Lord of our money and possessions. Watch the transfer of ownership when it becomes more meaningful. Watch this. When I talk about transfer of ownership, watch this. I'm not saying giving nothing up. None of you can be disciples who does not give up all his own possessions. Now we have to really think about these things. Luke 14 and 33. We give up and claim ownership of all that we have. So what am I talking about? I'll give you an analogy or a biblical insight. In scripture, when the Lord instructs Abraham, remember he told him to take your son, your only son whom you love, Isaac, offer him as a burnt offering. Remember in Genesis 22 and 2. But what do you think that means? Are we talking about obeying or demonstrating? Or are we talking about a sacrifice when everything or anything that's good, something must be sacrificed? So everything that's eternal, am I showing you something on an outside image to show you what's inside? You should really think about that to make it plain. Think about that now. Remember? Then the our analogy when they say God told, don't lay a hand on the boy, all that. You know all that story. But we're talking about ownership. Giving you the pictorial of when you want to be great, something's going to be sacrificed. So when we talk about spending decisions, become a spiritual decision. Now we talking. When you get to that level, watch what I'm talking about. I'm not telling nobody no one's doing anything wrong. We don't have to ask the Creator what we want to do, what should we do with our money. It becomes, it's your money. These things, when the essence change, when the shift change, things start to happen on its own. That's just the difference from those that's doing things together as a conglomerate that have all the same ideas, but it's not doing it, and those that do have the same ideas and say, let's do this. That's the difference. What? I just told you. It's nothing magical. It's nothing osmosis to nothing I'm saying. It's the will. I'm telling you. And when we have this attitude and handle this money according to this concept, spending and saving decisions become as spiritual as giving decisions. Think about the shift. This is the balance. So this shift, this creators, this, how can I say, higher essence of ownership It also influences how we care for possessions. You know? Think about it. Think about this now. I gave you biblical scriptures, and now I'm going to see if we're going to follow along with this dissertation, you know, of control. 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 So when we say, oh, nothing else, control. Control of everything, you know? So it's gonna be a it's gonna be a crazy it's gonna be the crazy dialogue, man, that this is gonna illuminate. Remembering the biblical analogy in the scripture about a certain rich man who had a manager or steward per se, and this steward was reported to him as slandering his possessions. And he called him and said to him, "What is this I hear about you? Give an account of your management, your stewardship, for you can no longer be steward." You remember that in Luke 16:1 and 2? So watch this in the concept of where we at right now. It's two principles from this that are applicable to individuals that want to understand what I'm talking about and make things plain for yourself in this biblical context that you can use. When we waste our possessions, it becomes public knowledge and creates a poor testimony. This steward was reported to him as squandering his possessions. And secondly, the Creator, whatever you want to call it, remove us as stewards if we squander what He has given to us. So when I say squander, think about these things. When I say squander, because I like to paint pictures. When I was getting my undergrad, I got my business management degree my bachelor's degree in business management with a minor in marketing and sales and nonprofit business startup. Excuse me. And so we always painted the picture, and we always had real discussions, not arguments, not talking about things to try to persuade someone, but real outcomes, real things in real life. So when a certain group of people are ready to make that transition, we'll be ready with reference, with history, with everything that we need, who we are, our spirituality, using our resources. We'll be ready because the tools is right in front of us. The tools is right in front of us. But I just want to paint a little picture. A businessman earned a fortune in just 3 years and then went on a spending spree. 2 years later, he informed his office staff that he had little left and everyone would need to economize. Shortly thereafter, he left for an expensive vacation and had his office completely renovated at the cost of thousands of dollars. During his vacation, the entire staff gathered in the newly decorated office to discuss his unbridled spending habits. The Creator, the Lord, whatever, when you make dumb decisions, you will be removed from these privileges of what? Being the steward over much. Think about these things, and then domino effects happens. This is a principle that's applicable today. If you waste the positions entrusted to you, sometimes it can dry up. It's good analogies and good pictorials you can take from things. That's why I say, as a philosopher, as a studier, as a map and a guide, you should be able to take things, all things, go through those things, take the good, use it for the good, dissect them, and then say, okay, this is good, or not. I wouldn't say good, but whatever you want to say, but this is applicable for what? These situations at hand. That's why. That's why Luke 16:10 is good for those that know how to use the tools in the toolbox. He who is faithful in a very little things is faithful also in much. And he who is unrighteous in a very little thing is unrighteous also in much. We're talking about possessions in this context. We're talking about possessions in this context because just if you have a lot don't mean you will be a good steward of a lot. I know a lot of people right now was entrusted with a lot of money and they have none today. We give analogies. How do you know someone would take good care, I'll say, of their car per se? Look how they take care of other things. How do you know a person that's doing anything, trying to sell anything, is doing great? Evaluate them. The small things. So when you're dealing with the small things, you say, hey, this person dealt with the small things just in the same class and the same dignity without compromising no integrity as he do the small thing and the big things. You know? The character to be faithful with the small things. That's when that trust with greater responsibilities. But we must let that time happen or that metamorphosis happen or that, how can I say, from a cocoon to a caterpillar. The small things are small things, but faithfulness with a small thing is a humongous thing when we're talking about this context. Even with other possessions, you know, it will determine how much you are given. These are just biblical lessons that we can deal with. When things is given to you, how do we deal with it? That's an overlooked principle. So I'm just giving biblical lessons, but I wanna really give a little pictorial of how things can be not looked at. Before we get into this good teaching, we on good time. I'm gonna take maybe 10 more minutes with this little dissertation. We're gonna jump right into the good history. My brother said he was like, this good stuff. You stupid. Yeah. Okay. But a lot of times we don't want to talk about debt and the amount of debt, which that's fine. I won't get all into the numbers and into the specifics and into the geographics and all that, etc. and so on. I won't indulge in giving a pictorial in that manifestation. What I'll do is try to put it in a mind frame of making it real simple. I would say elementary mathematics, or just try to use something that some people may have, like a mortgage, or I use percentages. And I just want to get a response so we can be on the same page if people can respond. Or just make sure I'm on the right page with my numbers. Or I might be super close. But when we talk about debt, you know what I mean? And why debt, is it good? Is it bad? The $1 trillion debt, you know? A lot of the households spend $400 more than it earns in each year. So when we talk about consumer debt, it increased at a rate of, at one point when it was done, this was years ago, at $1,000 a second. And a lot of us, when I say us, I talk about Americans, have a lot of personal debt. And in this country, the average person has been described as someone driving on a bond finance highway in a bank finance car, fueled by charged car finance gasoline, going to purchase furniture on an installment plan to put in a savings and loan finance home. Now that right there, and if we're not saying everyone do that, but could we think in our hippocampus? Could we think back? Do we know someone that may have took that route? If we do, if it may be new. So then we can sit in the driver's seat and get wisdom from what we're talking about to not only say, let's correct some things and let's do some things different, Let's even talk about that to help someone. Because when I talk about this, my whole analogy of things is I'm from a city of Flint, Michigan. A lot of other people from are from urban areas. One of my muftis is from St. Louis. It's like a urban Moorish area. The thing is going back in the community and owning things and purchasing things and having your religious community. These are the keys with the people that know how to do these things. Ownership, what your community. I'm not saying a person can't go out and own things here and there, but I'm talking about when missions start to develop and you see where you from, what you love your city and these areas, you can start doing what? Things the right way, developing it. Using what? The funds that you give to Uncle Sam to do what? Develop it. Right in your community. And the thing that's supposed to happen is everybody that know how to work with their hands as masons, when I say electricians, carpenters, brick masons, all those things, plumbers, all those brothers and sisters come in the community, use their skills and build the community and be what? Stakeholders. That's how things can happen. I'm telling you. So a lot of people are drowning in the wrong type of debt, you know? In a study a while ago, 1,300,000 individuals filed bankruptcy and almost sobering. It was a Gallup poll found that 56% of all divorces is a result of financial tension in the home. The results are of financial tension in the home. Financial tension. And such financial tension is created largely by what? Believing the gospel according to Madison Avenue, buy now and pay later, and easy monthly payments. And we all know that nothing about these monthly payments is easy. When we break these things down from a small molecule, and I show people like you losing. A lot of advertising don't tell you the whole truth. I'll give you another pictorial just to give you the context of how funny things can be. Those commercials when they were drinking milk, they weren't even drinking milk. It wasn't even it was the milk little makeup, you know. And a lot of times in this context, they leave out the little word debt. So when we talk about debt, the dictionary defines debt as money that a person is obliged to pay to another. Debt include money owed to credit card companies, bank loans, money borrowed from relatives, mortgages, past due medical bills, bills that come due, such as monthly electric bills, are not considered debt. You hear what I said? I said such as the monthly electric bills are not considered debt if they are paid on time. Bills that come due, such as, is not debt. So we need to understand real costs of debt. So now here comes the class. I've done this before with a group of people. They have a big building that they own a few homes, you know. And I said once we get to that level, the blueprint, the template, whatever you want to call it, works. Everybody know it works. You know, anybody can tell you, be like, yes, the blueprint the man telling you is worked. Like it's just on the people. I'm telling you, it's amazing when it start happening because it happens so fast. But you need to understand the real cost of debt. So right now, if you got a pencil or paper, assume you have $5,560 in credit card debt at an 18% interest rate. How much would that cost you annually? Do anybody know? Or, I mean, I'm gonna tell you the answer anyway, but do anybody know that, or may have it in their head? Because we went over this before, you know. When we talk about things and we can show how things can really accumulate. on a mass scale, and how some things are just given away. Do anybody know? How much it'll cost you in interest annually? Do anybody know? How much it'll cost you interest annually? Anyone? I'll give a couple more seconds. Let's see. Anybody? Can anybody type something on there for me? Anybody swift with it? Anybody swift with the numbers on here? How much would it cost you annually? Anybody got the answer? We give it a couple more seconds, and then I give it. We're gonna proceed. But do anybody got the answer? I said, assume you have $5,560 in credit card debt at an 18% interest rate. How much interest is estimated annually? Annually. Do anybody know how much interest would it cost you annually? Annually. Do anybody know? We give one more minute, and we're gonna proceed. I want to see, can anybody answer it? Because these are things that we should know when we go into anything. When we research anything, these things can be answered. Because you should never, ever go in anything that's going to be one of the biggest decisions in your life, and you don't know what I'm talking about, or can't answer that, boom, bow. If you can't answer that fast, to me, and I could be wrong, that means you went into this contract, what I'm saying, without no one there in your best interest. You went into that contract really not knowing. You may have went into that contract, and in that contract, there may be some vernacular that you don't even understand. You may not even understand what a fluctuating mortgage is. It may be some vernacular in your mortgage to where it goes up a certain percentage every so often. Then you lose it. So, what I'm asking my brothers and sisters again, some of these things should be able. What you say? Not 100? No, definitely not $100.80. You definitely not $100. Think about it again. I said annually. Now you annually assume you have $5,560 in credit card debt at 18% interest rate. This will cost you how much interest annually? Now we know what annually means. How much annually? Annually. How much annually would it cost? Now, and it's no disrespect to no one. We in class. This is a beautiful thing. Okay. Now, okay. We'll say that, but we'll round it off to a number. I say 1,000 per se. Annually. And so in 5 years, just off that interest rate, you would be at 5 bands. 10 years, you'll be at 10 bands. 20 years, you'll be at 20 bands. 30 years, 30,000. 40 years, you'll be at 40 grand. So what you could accumulate on $1,000 investment annually earning 12%. Now, what you could accumulate on $1,000 investment annually earning 12%. Now, here's the ticker. A person to say, well, how can you earn a 12% on annually on $1,000? Here's the kicker. I'm talking about conglomerates. I'm talking about when you have a team, when you have a group of people, your 12% is not going in your pocket. What you're doing is continue to invest until it becomes a multi-million-dollar operation. You may pay yourself, per se. But when you take these investments on a large scale in your community, these things can be done. Why? Because you're starting to buy things. You're starting to fix things up. Everybody in your group, they see the vision. So we're fixing these things ourselves. I'm telling you, it's easy to do. So on that $1,000 investment annually, at 12%, in 5 years, it could be 6 grand, 353. In 17 years, in 10 years, it can be 17,549. 20 years, 72,000. 30 years, 241,000, with some change. And 40 year, 767,000 and some change. So now, when you get into these contracts, or when you go into these contracts, not have discussions with anybody that may say, okay, you may do this if you want. But at least when you go on this contract, you should want to get the contract that's in your best interest, not just excited. Because when you go in a contract like this, and when I show you the numbers that the lenders make from your interest payment at 18%, you'll say, what you mean, She? What you mean with the lender make? Yes, the lender earns from your investment. Your lender going to earn from your investment payment at what? 18% interest. What you mean? 5 years, they're going to make 7,000 and some change. 10 years, they're going to make 23,000 and some change. Year 20, 146,000 and some change. That might be your whole mortgage right there, per se. You see? Year 30, 790,000 and some change. But year 40, 4,163,213. So when you look at these numbers in these ramifications, when you see a person, getting people, I won't say caught up, but getting people in contracts, I'm not saying right or wrong. You see how money can be accumulated. You see how you be paying, be like, damn, how many times over am I paying for something? You're not even thinking about that. You can see what lenders have known for a long time, brothers and sisters. The incredible impact of compounding interest. It worked for them. Why? Because the lender will accumulate more than $4 million if you pay $1,000 a year for 40 years. That's why. And the lender owns 18% on your payment. That's why. And is there any wonder credit card companies, they're eager for you to become one of the borrowers? Why? Because these things are set up in a specific fashion. So when you compare the 40,000 you paid in interest over 40 years with the $767,091, you could have accumulated earning 12% on $1,000 each year, and the monthly income on $767,091 is $7,671. If it's earning 12% without ever touching the principal, So when we consider this stuff, when we assume this debt of $5,560 and pay $1,000 a year in interest, if a 12% return is earned on an investment, it actually will cost you $767,091 over 40 years. Think about that. That has a much higher cost than anything that we think. Think about it. So now let's deal with something on a regular scale. I can say when me and my Empress first moved to Arizona, we had the opportunity to get a house at a good price. We didn't get it, we were still, making moves, whatever. But now the house market is stupid crazy. But let's talk about some things and make it plain, if you don't mind. Watch how simple this is. Very simple. So, get your pens and papers. A 30-year home mortgage at a 10% interest rate will require you to pay more than 3 times the amount originally borrowed. Do you know that? Did you know? What did you just say, sir? Can you slow down and read that again? Absolutely, sir. A 30-year home mortgage at a 10% interest rate will require you to pay more than 3 times the amount originally borrowed. Now, if that ain't no type of gangster racketeering, then I don't know what it is. What type of loan that anybody can get into, an American, and some melanated people get into a worse contract than that, to where it's in your best interest. That's a lose, 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 lose off the top just to have a house. Think about that. That's a lose, 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 lose. The whole idea now, as I'm going, as I'm learning, is to what? Buy some of the most biggest area in your community, land, everything. If the house messed up, tear that stuff down, put your whole Amish style log cabin or your modular home right on your land. Boom. Put your pole barns on your land. Boom. Do all that. Have your gardens next to it, everything. Boom. That's what you do. That's what you do. That's what you do. Buy you some land in the middle of, like we do, of Arizona and Vegas, and continue to build your community. That's what you do. But a 30-year home mortgage at a 10% interest rate will require you to pay more than 3 times the amount originally borrowed. Wow. Wowzers. Think about that. Think about that. Now let's do some simple mathematics for my brothers and sisters to see how you can be like, whoa, I never thought about this. To see how you losing. So why can somebody get mad at anybody else in the world that's making money, especially when a person say they want it that bad, they're going this type of upside down contract? Why will anybody else get in trouble? But you see what's happening with these companies. So are these companies doing the same thing that the streets are doing? Think about it now. If you think about it now, because how is this any good for the consumer? Think about it. Think about this now. So let's do some simple mathematics, and I bet you everybody should be able to catch this number. And I'll wait and see if anybody math is on point, because this is simple mathematics. Now, if you have a home, I guarantee you, I'm speaking gospel to you, because I might be talking to you. And if you say, no, that ain't me, I'm in a higher interest rate, or no, I'm in a higher interest rate, he. Well, that's even worse, sir or ma'am. If you had a higher interest rate than anything that I'm talking about, if you had a higher interest rate than anything I'm talking about, you really screwed. It's simple. Listen, I'm gonna tell another tool. When you buy a property in the neighborhood, make sure you own the land. See, a lot of that stuff, I don't have to talk about names and stuff. Man, I live in these cities. I can help anybody get land and property. Then it's having the people to fix it up. And in the amount of time. I'm telling you. Now, watch this. Let's do the numbers. Say your original mortgage amount, what you borrow, is $100 grand. $100 grand is $100,000. Excuse my ebonics. But $100,000, right? $100,000, right? So your monthly mortgage payment at 10% interest would be what? What would your monthly mortgage payment at 10% interest? At 10% interest be? Do anybody know? Can anybody give me that figure? Come on, we smart. Ooh, Carlin, close. Carlin, close. Close, Carlin. Close. Close. But I like I like how your brain works. Carlin, I like how your brain wired. Because we saying what's greater than or what's closer to what's so you close. It's almost at $900, $877.57. And so then you times that by what? So-called not so-called, but 360. You times that by 360, you get what? $315,925.20. That's 3 times the amount that you borrow. That's 3 times the amount that you borrow. So who getting paid? Think about this now. My number might be a little, just a tittle off, but my number probably right and exact. My number probably right and exact. And I don't even have my pen and my paper. I'm just going over my notes in my in my little booklet. I've done this a plethora of times. That's what I'm telling us. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Every time. And then watch this. You don't own it. Why? Because you gotta pay property taxes. Then what? You lose your house for property taxes. Then you lose your house for property taxes. Something that you might have paid or your mom might have paid for maybe 30 years. I'm just giving you an analogy. Now, this analogy say you take owner of it and ownership of it, and bam, you lose it for property taxes. Because you don't know how to protect property, nothing. Everything's still in public. You know what I mean? Nothing's in private. A lot of things is just messed up. But think about the analogy, and the science of what I'm saying. Why, when as a business professional, I would tell any young person, are they from a community? Are they from a neighborhood? I would tell them to go back in their neighborhood with their community and with their tribe and buy back their neighborhood. How? Just like the Amish do. Just like anybody else. I'm telling y'all, how I learned about this, my Empress is on my other page. Man, we end up getting so many acres in St. John, Arizona. Figured out how to do that. Started building our community with our brotherhood and our sisterhood. Now we have 10 acres in Mojave, Arizona, in the middle of Vegas, in the middle of Arizona going to Vegas. And eventually, yes, we're going to do something with it. We might sell it, whatever. But I always tell brothers and sisters to invest in your community. Where you can do good things in a community, where you can adopt a community. You know, where you can be a religious community, where you can barter with each other, where you can do business with each other, where those dollars can be circulated in that community. Everybody don't have to move out, you can move in. Because if there wasn't no money in the neighborhoods, why could you go to any urban neighborhood and all the stores, gas stations are owned by misnomer, no disrespect, pale Arabs, modern Arabs per se, making a killing. If there's no money in the neighborhood, we just have to resurrect our community. But this is what I'm talking about, you know? And it's no disrespect to no one, but when you see this on this mass scale, you can go, I'm not telling you what not to do, but when we say, oh, we can't do this, we can't do that, you say, send money back home. Yeah, absolutely. And then when I talk about the law set up, see, watch this. Watch this, brother. When we don't understand laws, Carla, a lot of times, we can do the same thing. How? Because we can have all our family working for us. Everybody can get tax breaks. This is the thing. They say, oh, they got a different tax break. No, they don't. They don't have a different tax break. What I tell people is we don't understand the laws that we're governed by. We're not hiring our family. We're not doing this. We're not hiring our wives, our kids, our family. We're not using those tax breaks. We're not doing all these things that we can do to manifest in this proper manifestations. Why? Because we're not having these conversations. All we're talking about is Jesus, the Lord, or Muhammad, or this and that and the other. We're not having these type of conversations. We're not having finance conversations in real life. Not trying to hustle nobody, but showing people real things. Showing people that we are taxes in for the federal government. Showing people that we can have our religious community. Showing people that we can put the APP out and tell people that we got people that do this. And then we can get buildings and houses built. You know? So this is what I tell people. I say, let's have these conversations. Let's share this stuff. We the algorithm. We don't have to talk about nothing stupid. We can change this stuff. I don't have no magical wand. Don't nobody have to take no stupid course with me. I can show people real stuff. I got real people doing this stuff. I'm from Flint, Michigan. Me and my homies are doing some things under the radar. Just imagine if we was like these entertainers that had these talk shows and these big podcasts, and they did this big crowdfunding and got millions and millions of dollars from regular people. Man, people would be like, man, they the baddest thing in the city. They're like, man, these boys know what they doing. Especially if you got the funding like them, because when you got the funding and don't do what that means it's a fraud off top. All these things, if anybody want to buy a crib, I say get the land. I say deal with builders. Deal with contractors. Learn how to build contractors. Look at Amish styles log cabins. Look at these things that's already built. So when you build your base, then you can get your stuff boom, drop right down. Look at all these other ways to build things, to have things. Look at buying land in a certain area. Look at all these things. And if I would do things, if I'm from a community or anything like that, I will go back in my community. That's just me. You know? But debt is not that good. And even the scripture does not say debt is a sin, but it discourages the use of debt. You know? Remember Romans 13:8? Owe no man anything. Let no debt remain outstanding. Pay all debts. Owe nothing to anyone. Keep out of debt. Owe no man anything. Because debt is considered slavery. Remember Proverbs 22:7? Just as the rich rule the poor, so the borrower is the servant to the lender. And when we are in debt, we are in position of servitude to the lender. And the deeper we are in debt, the more like servants we become. We don't have freedom to decide where to spend your money because our money is already obligated to meet these debts. We can use scripture for everything. Remember, and Paul says in Corinthians 7:23, you were brought with the price. All these things. Biblical scripture says that debt is a curse. In the Old Testament, being out of debt was one of the promised rewards for obedience. Remember? If you diligently obey the Lord, that's what it said, your God, being careful to do all his commandments, which I command you today, the Lord your God will set you high above all the nations of the earth. All these blessings will come to you. You shall lend to many nations, but you shall not borrow. Deuteronomy 28:1, 2, and 12. Because debt was one of the curses for disobedience. You see? No disrespect to no one. I'm just saying how these things, when we go into these situations and we see how debt consumes, that's all I'm saying. And you can see that pictorial. And you can say, wait a minute, you said 3 times as much, Sheik? Yes. I just showed that. So who wins? Clearly not us. That's why I say in every ramification of life, and I won't say every. Shit. Yeah, I'll take that back. I am gonna say every. But majority of the time, I say it like that. That maybe that's more politically correct. Majority of the time, most people are being taught from their own people wrong. And I mean no disrespect, and I mean all honor. Because it's so much. Like right now, this book right here, The One World Tartarians. I always talk about this book. This book is not expensive. I have it in PDF form for brothers and sisters. When I do lectures on the college campus, I give these books away for small pennies. They print them, or they have our book company print them. But when you have access to these books, ever looked into exploring cattle? Ever looked in exporting cattle to Africa? Hey, man, whew. Listen, we I know something about that, but I haven't got into it, but I know something about that. As you said that, I definitely know something about that. You know, I've had a conversation with a couple of individuals that have farms, and it's funny you said that. But anyway, a lot of times we just don't have conversations to talk about all these other avenues to make money. I'm telling you, when you have a group, and you can say, okay, well, we're going to see when it's not just, debilitating a person's finances. But when we talk about things, I just want to talk about this One World Tartarians, and by James W. Lee. The One World Tartarians And a lot of people be talking about things but won't show it. And then you have to go to Amazon and buy the books. And I'm telling you, you know me. You can get the books from me downloaded on your tablet for pennies, for small donations. Have it on everywhere you go. You can have all these books. Or you can have them hard copy. We print and bind them. But I want to give you a little highlight on this as I proceed. But Tartarus is in the King James Bible, y'all. Like in the King James Bible, it reads that after this life, we will go to places such as abandon, Hades, heaven, hell, paradise, Sheol, and Tartarus. And Tartarus. The vast people and the vast majority of people believe that there is a life after this one. What are these places? The Old Testament talks about Sheol and the recesses of Sheol, of Bedon, and heaven, while the New Testament uses these terms Hades, hell, or Gehenna, the abyss, or Tartarus, and the lake of fire, paradise in heaven. This study is designed to explain these terms and help you understand what the King James Bible is saying. Now remember, Abaddon is another horrible place. It is the place where the angels who sinned in Genesis 6, 1 and 4 are bound. They were and are particularly disobedient, evil angels who sin by having relations with women. That's what it says. The statement is supported by comparing Jude 6 and 8 with 1 Peter 3, 18 and 20. 2 Peter 2, 4 and 8, and Luke 8 and 31. And by comparing these verses, you discover that these angels sinned before Noah built the ark in Genesis 6. We just painting the picture. They sinned in Genesis 6, 1 and 4, Jude 6 and 8, with 1 Peter 3 and 18 and 20, 2 Peter 2, 4 and 8. Provide the chronology or the order of how things conspired. As a result, the angels were imprisoned in Abaddon. Remember? The Old Testament name, or Tartarus, the New Testament name. Remember, y'all? Now watch this. Tartarus is another New Testament name for Abaddon. The Greek word Tartarus appears in 2 Peter 2 and 4. For if God did not spare angels when they sinned, but sent them to hell, aka Tartarus, putting them in gloomy dungeons to be held for judgment. Remember 2 Peter 2 and 4. Here we are specifically told that it is a place where the bound angels exist, right? The Tartar Union of the Godless was an organization in the Muslim republics. Listen to me, during purges by the Soviet Union. From 1928 to 1937, Burhan Mansurov served as the chairman of the organization. The territory presently known as Tatarstan made demands for greater Tatar autonomy with the USSR, which came into conflict with the advocates of a federal system grouped around Joseph Stalin. In 1928, the leader of the Tatar Union of the Godless were arrested, stripped of Bolshevik party membership, and some were sentenced to death. You see? Oh, I'm giving you history, baby. From the book Chronicles or Border Warfare by Alexander Scott Withers. Now I'm giving you reference. Tartarian Native Americans are considered Hebrew Israelites. It's very possible that the true Hebrew Israelites are the Scythian, the Tartarian, based on older maps as a reference when Tartar, Scythia, Scythia, encompass all of Russia, parts of Europe, and Asia. Seems like this is an open secret with the Native American community. More than one nation in America has Scythian or Tartarian extraction. Native Americans were trafficked to the other parts of the globe, including China. Native Americans resemble that of Scythians, Tartars, and Samoyed people. Continent of Brazil was peopled by Carthaginian and Israelites. Israelites meaning people of north, aka Scythians. Native American descendants were possessed of an extraordinary divine spirit by which they foretold future events, and that this was transmitted to their offspring provided they obeyed the sacred laws annexed to it. This is a lie agreed upon. The New World Order, the historians tell us, and written by the victors, absolute nothing was invented or discovered by scientists and intellectuals of the 19th and the 20th century. I said it. The high civilization Tartarian extracted electromagnetic energy from the ether through the star fork strongholds, complexes of temples, domes, towers, minarets, obelisks that used copper. The energy was processed and stored in torad coils at the power plant summits, covered with copper and always positioned below the towers. When rotating inside coils, magnetic fields created electric charges in a mercury vortex. Hindu energetic complexes exhibit this function at the top of the structures, even when I talk about the Ankh in this manifestation. But anyway, in a coil of multitude turns of wire, the magnetic field of the turns as the center of the coil, creating a strong field. Copper has high electric and thermal conductivity and has been mined since the beginning of human history. Viennese, or the Phoenicians, mined copper in the New World, which was America, and Cornwall. Copper ingots used in the so-called Middle East and Europe complex were mined and melted in facilities in the Americas. And according to the American Indian oral tradition, copper was mined by the so-called red-haired, white-skinned marine men who came from across the sea, and mines of Almadine in Spain, Havachalik in Peru, and New Almadine in California provided the mercury. I could talk about a lot, because we got time. On the Tartar history by the Martini, 1654. Research this. A lot of this stuff was in Latin, y'all. And it says, I should be able to short writing my soul out of the war with the Tartars. It is a war with the neighboring Caucasus, Cofaccis, Europe, by the Tartars, on page 19. Tartar, the oldest in the Asiages, or Asia genus, Asiagenes, Asiagenis, and the many people already 4,000 years, the Chinese an enemy, instead of being carried on an active campaign spent, nevertheless exert winners. I am Tartar called people who came to the north, parts of infamous wall beyond China. I mean, I can talk about all this, but I want to kind of fast forward it, because what I'm telling you, all these people were the Tartars. The new chronology in volume 1 and 2 and 3 of History, Fiction or Science, Anatoly Fomenko and his colleagues assert that the different accounts of the same historical events are often assigned different dates and locations by historians and translators, creating multiple phantom copies of the events. These phantom copies are often misdated by centuries or even millennia, and end up incorporated into conventional chronology. I'm telling you, reference, when you hear these, no disrespect, these Eurocentric and these Negrocentric propaganda, all they references be fake history. That is the chronology that was largely manufactured by Joseph Justus Scaliger in Opus Novum, the Imdium Temporum. This was in 1583. And Theorum Temporum in 1605. It's a vast array of dates produced without any justification whatsoever, containing the repeating sequences of dates with shifts equals to multitudes of the major Kabbalistic numbers 333 and 360. Who is it? It's the police.
Yeah.
Yo, I see what you got, y'all.
It's okay.
You look like a king.
Oh.
Now your pants tight, girl. What you doing?
Very tight.
You doing booty ups? Ah, my lady.
Woo!
Hey, how you all here?
Who was that?
You.
Because I was watching you.
Oh. I like
Because
how,
I was watching you.
you know. But it is a lot of history that we're gonna take to the youth, especially when I go to St. Louis where my Noble at. We're gonna be doing a little summer camp with some youth. That it's gonna be, and everything is gonna be free because we do everything off donations. Gonna give them books and everything. But I can talk about the history of ancient Rome, Greece, and Egypt were crafted during the Renaissance by humanists and clergy, mostly on the basis of documents of their own making. That the Old Testament, watch this, y'all. The Old Testament is a rendition of events of the 14th and the 16th century AD in Europe and Byzantine, containing prophecies about future events related in the New Testament, which is a rendition of events of 1153 to 1186 AD. The history of religions runs as follows: the pre-Christian period, Bacchic Christianity, before and after JC Christianity, and a subsequent mutation in Orthodox Christianity, the Catalysm, and Islam. The most probable prototype of historical Jesus was Andronicus, allegedly AD 1153 to 1186, the emperor of Byzantine, known for his failed reforms. His traits and deeds reflected in biographies of many real and imaginary persons. That the Almagest of Claudius Ptolemy traditionally date to around 150 AD, and considered to be the cornerstone of classical history, was compiled in 16th and 17th centuries from astronomical data of the 9th to the 16th century. You have to know this. A lot of our brothers and sisters, they just don't know this. That 37 complete Egyptian horoscopes found in Dendera, Insa, and other temples have unique valid astronomical solutions with dates ranging from 1000 AD and up to as late as 1700 AD. Now I'm gonna give y'all more reference. That the book of Revelation we know of contains a horoscope that is dated to the 25th of September to the 10th of October. 1486, compiled by a Kabbalist, a Kabbalist named Jonas Ruchlin. But we've done this a lot in our private teachings. I pull out a lot of stuff in scripture for you can see. The horoscope found in the Sumerian and the Babylonian tablets do not contain sufficient astronomical data. Consequently, they have solutions every 30 to 50 years on the time axis and are therefore useless for the purpose of dating when you can fact check things. Even the Chinese tables of the eclipse, they're useless for dating. They contain too many eclipses that didn't take place astronomically. And the Chinese tables of comets, even if we were true, they cannot be used for dating. That all major events like powder and guns, paper and print were made, we used to say Africa, but in Europe in the 10th and the 16th century because it was made by you. The ancient Roman and Greek statues showing perfect command of human anatomy, they all fake. They all crafted in the Renaissance when, according to Fomenko, Fomenko, such command was for the first time attained. Y'all know this. You can research the voyages and trails of the ambassadors from the Duke of Holstein, the great Duke. It's going to tell you everything that I'm saying. And like you look up on Fakepedia, they try to attempt to debunk of Mr. Fomenko's work. The New Chronology is a pseudo-historical Russian conspiracy theory which argues that the events of antiquity, generally attributed to the civilizations of the Roman Empire, ancient Greece, and ancient Egypt, actually occurred during the Middle Ages, more than 1,000 years later. The theory further proposes that the world history prior to 1600 AD has been widely falsified to suit the interests of a number of different conspirators, including the Vatican, the Holy Roman Emperor, right? So when a lot of kids get this history, when we teach them in summer camps and things this year, it's going to be amazing. They're going to have a whole different history that they're going to be able to talk about with different books and research, changing the whole curriculum. Changing the whole curriculum from scholarship to ask the question, giving all these kids something to compare to. You know? So when you research that, I don't want to stay too far in Roman Oaks history because I want to dance around because my lady back. But we can talk about a lot of things. I want to get to a little topic that the North American Moors, elimination and rewriting of American history. Credit to Marcy, Romulo, and the Blue on Facebook. That's they're giving credit to somebody. The territories of Canada, United States, and Mexico were known as Indian Superior and were populated by the same people that was wiped out across the ocean during the Russian Revolution in 1917 and German Revolution of 1918 and 1919. The Russian Revolution alone may have exterminated a 5-decade-long bloodbath that slaughtered 1 million Russian Tartarians. Russian icons, Russian Tartarians. As the old world order Tartarians were eliminated, the new world order Romanos then decided the imperial territory as Canadian, American, and Mexican lands seized the world power and rewrote the history of Americas. After they took possession of the Newfoundland and the Nova Scotia, the New World Order agents reached New Amsterdam, which is New York, Washington, and the Great Lakes of North America, settling in Milwaukee, Chicago, and Detroit. From there, they organized the massacres of 10 million of the buffaloes, cows, and wild horses, and transformed the assembly lines of the electric car factories into oil cars. Y'all remember when that was changed from that to oil cars? A lot of your mothers and fathers, they remember this time. They remember the shift. It's very easy to talk about. It was necessary swept away all the fertile lands from its original inhabitants. Was then the massacre of men and animals began. So when we talk about New World Order, not nothing scary, just how things is done today. Order the Native Americans or the Native Indians. Remember when Christopher Columbus was such the great navigator, he thought he landed in India. Hence, American Indians were named to leave their land and march without water or food for days. You know that the Trail of Tears. The aim was to exterminate them without spending ammunition. Others was killed on their own land through blankets impregnated with smallpox. Perhaps many of them went to feed Chicago's meat industries mixed with those of their herds. I'm telling you, I can show you all this in history. It's no disrespect. The original American Moors were most likely Islamic. Islam was in America and had been a big influence on America because you have a total of 565 names, 484 in America and 81 in Canada. Villages, towns, cities, mountains, all this. Etymologically Arabic, which were designed and designated by locals long before the arrival of Columbus. Many of these names are in fact the same names of Islamic places. Mecca in India, Medina in Idaho, Medina in New York, Medina in Hazin in North Dakota, Medina in Ohio, Medina in Tennessee, Medina in Texas, Medina in Arva in Ontario, Mohammed, Illinois, Mona in Utah, just a few names. When you look at the Arabic etymological ancestry, Anasazi, Apache, Arawak, Araucana, Chavin, Cherokee, Cree, Hohokam, Hupa, Hopi, Maka, Moshian, Mohawk, Nazca, Zulu, and Zuni are only a few. Islam was everywhere in the Americas. When you look at this, you can see the evidence that Queen Caliph, California, to Alabama, which is Alabama, to Tallahassee, which is Tallahassee, to Medina, Ohio, to Moorestown, New Jersey, to Islamorada, which is Florida, to Alhambra, which is California. Muslims have left a big impact on America. When you talk about Ibn Battuta, research him, the Islamic discoverer that traveled around the world. The kids don't even know about this. A lot of brothers that's Islamic don't even know about these histories. What happened to the Berbers? The Berbers were the ancient Amazigians. The Amazigians were the freemen. Research what I'm talking about. The Saracens, the Muslims of what? The Americas, the copper color races found here in America. That's what American is. Remember when I talk about the Spanish Inquisition, the Dum Diverses of 1452, issued by the Pope, authorizing Christians to enslave Saracens? Who do you think the Saracens was? The same thing in your Bible, the same thing in the history is the copper color races. It was a bounty, excuse my candor, on Negro, black, and colored and African Americans religiously. Aren't y'all not seeing what I'm teaching you historically? Look, I'm giving it to you on a platter. Berbers, Saracens, and Thomas Jefferson Quran, the same thing. So the Dum Diverses, the Spanish Inquisition, issued by the Pope, authorized Christians to enslave Saracens and non-believers and to take their lands because no one disappeared. All right, it's almost time, y'all. It's other time. It's the other part of me time. It's just that everyone has become ignorant. And there are over 500 cities and towns in the United States named after Muslims and a huge part of Europe. Even in textbooks and education of today are all manipulated. Therefore, Western academics will not get us out of our deep sleep because Western academics is an institution that has put we the people, the Lenape, the Moors, the Washita, to sleep to begin with. And how I know? Because I have the education to stand into that and not disrespect it, but challenge the authority of falsehood, of Eurocentric and Negrocentric propaganda. Why? Because I can do it. What? How? With scholarly research. That's why I say we need our own institutions and schools. Not saying we have to take from, but we have to add value to. Why are children doing this? So when they're dealing with the world and dealing with other people and know how to deal with other how can I say, races and sexual preferences and different circumstances and different financial backgrounds, they can have this as well to get them over that hump. That's what we need. We need those that's not compromised by oath and by Western academics. Because everything, when I say that, most people in academia, they Freemason and they took oaths. I ain't saying all. The more comes from the Orient, the Far East. What's also interesting is that the Oriental means Western scholar who study Islam, according to the book Orientalism by Edward Said. Research what I'm telling you. Islam came from the Orient. Additionally, if you read subsection 4 of the Delaware law, it will tell you that the Lenape Indians were formerly known as Moors. You heard me. The Lenape Indians were formerly known as Moors. Fact check me. The Lenape were Delaware Moors, Muurs, Moors, originally. However, the word Lenape means we the people. We the people are what? Moors. The preamble of the U.S. Constitution, or true people, the Lenape also means serpent, dragon, naga, nigga. Likewise, Indian names like Saxus or Sixus and Dakota also mean serpent or dragon because the Moors, the Indians, named themselves after the serpent wisdom that we worship when Moors ruled the world. But where does Islam come from? Did it come from Mecca, California, Medina, India, Mecca, India, Morocco, Indiana? Did it come from Sufism, Sophia? Sufism, Sophia, which was a science that comes from India. Do all religions come from India, superior in the Americas? Even in the eyes of the hijack Hebrews, the Templars, the Holy Roman Empire, the Habsburg dynasty, The Holy Land was possessed of infidels. They call them, aka Muslims, Moors. Therefore, they were authorized via the Dum Diverses. Remember the Dum Diverses of 1452 to take Muslim Jerusalem, the Americas, Granada, away from the Moors, who were Saracens. Also read the Dum Diverses. Read this stuff for yourself and see if I'm lying to you. Which authorized the Templars, the Knights of Christ, to conquer the Saracens and pagans, call you a pagan, take your possession, and to subject you to perpetual servitude, slavery. That's the melanated. The same thing I was just telling you in the other part of history. The Dum Diverses, the Papal Bull, and none of them were ever rescinded, which is the current problem that the Moors in America face as Saracens, who as Saracens in order to take your Muslim Jerusalem away from you, which was Granada. When you look at the map, write this stuff I'm telling you, of 1597 of Granada Nova, you can see the famed 7 cities of Cibola, aka the 7 cities of gold, surrounding a lake on the said map. And then you'll see Granada has the same name as the pomegranate in Spanish. The Spanish word for the fruit is granada, and therefore the symbol of the promised land, because the pomegranate appears throughout the streets of Granada in Spain. And as you wander around the city, the pomegranate is also associated with the promised land of Israel, because a pomegranate is a metaphor for the richness of the promised land, of Israel. Read it in Deuteronomy 8 and 8. In the Song of Solomon, Sulamith's cheeks are compared to halves of a pomegranate. Right? Come on, we know that. Even in further, more northwest U.S. Tartary, Russia from my house, all these things I can show you, but I don't want to stay there. I want to get to this last part, and we out of here. Some people might not like what I'm going to say, but oh well. The first native of America, the Black Moors. The historian Chancellor Wilson said the original Moors, like the original Egyptians, were black Africans. The 16th century English playwright William Shakespeare used the word Moor as a synonym for African. His contemporary Christopher Marlowe also used African and Moor interchangeably. Black soldiers, specifically identified as Moors, were actively recruited by Rome and served in Britain, France, Switzerland, Australia, Hungary, Poland, and Romania. Saint Maurice, patron saint of medieval Europe, was only one of many black soldiers and officers under the employ of the Roman Empire. Although generations of Spanish rulers have tried to expunge this era from the historical record, recent archaeology and scholarship now shed fresh light on the Moors who flourished in Al-Andalus for more than 700 years, from 711 AD until 1492. The Moorish advancements in mathematics, astronomy, art, architecture helped propel Europe out of the Dark Ages and into the Renaissance. The Moors brought enormous learning to Spain. You got me, son?
I got it. That's the shit.
Yeah, save me some.
That's a prize.
Yeah. The intellectual achievement of the Moors in Spain had a lasting effect. So, let me hurry up, man, because this girl crazy. But destroying the identity of the black Tartarians. In the Los Angeles Times, June 4th, 1990, it reported that when Napoleon visited the Sphinx in 1798, everything but the head was buried in sand. His soldiers used the Sphinx for target practice. While the Sphinx had already suffered nose damage prior to Napoleon, the greatest destruction took place during Napoleon's occupation of Egypt, as documented by Tony Browder and testified by the collection of the Sphinx portraits. He has assembled on his page, the Nile Valley contributes to civilization on 225. And the 6 portraits draw over a period of 100 years, from 1698 to 1798. And you see the looks of the Sphinx. You know, I mean, I can show you pictures of things, but I'm trying to speed it up. And you will see exactly what it looked like from false pictures. You know? You will see the Africoid Camite statues. They missing the noses. And then you'll see, no disrespect, the European looking like figures are intact. How are all those intact but the old ones missing the noses and everything's, but all the new figures are intact? All of them missing the noses. Why? Well, you see that all of the old pictures missing the noses, but the new Caucasoid looking ones, all of the noses be intact. You ain't never thought about that and be like, why? You know why. That's why it's a riddle in the Sphinx. You know, it's a key. The head typically Negroid in all its features. He later added the Egyptians were the true Negroes of the same type as all native-born Americans or Africans. The New World Order, Romanov dynasties would often deface statues of the past monarchs in order to erase or diminish their legacy. In these cases, the removal of the nose would be accompanied by other, more extensive facial disfigurements, as well as the destruction of descriptions and symbols of office. Now let's get to the good part, and we out of here. Drum roll, please. If you want this book, Pete, I can send it right to your email. Anybody that tell you that deal with me, any college students, I've built their library up with small donations. They have everything on their tablets. They travel with everything. They say they didn't want the books hard copy because they lose them. If they want them print and bind it, we'll print and bind them for them. But you don't want to miss out on this literature to have and touch and to read on your leisure and to share. But here go another lie. The transatlantic slave trade. It's a lie. Some 12.5 million Africans were taken from their homes and forced aboard slave ships that were destined for the New World. About 10.7 million people survived the horrors of the Middle Passage between 1526 and 1866, only to end up in bondage on sugar, rice, and cotton and tobacco plantations throughout America and the Caribbean. The transatlantic slave trade is the largest forced migration in history. Misnomer black people are indigenous to the Americans. The black Native American are not a result of the so-called Red Indian mixing with slaves. The so-called Red Indian come from mixing with the European colonists and the Asians that were in America before Columbus. The first Native Americans were Mongolian Tartarians. Melville Herskovitz, a European anthropologist, was one of the originators of the out of Africa theory. Herskovitz never had a historical, archaeological, or anthropological proof that black people of the Americas ever derived from West and North Africa. Consequently, Herskovitz crafted the theory that blacks arrived in America from the transatlantic slave trade, which allegedly brought in more than 10 million African slaves. According to the National Archives of Spain and the Smithsonian records, there were no evidence to prove 70,000 ships with black Africans ever sailed to the Americas. Melville carried out the teachings of his mentor, Franz Boas, to make the original copper color races of the Americas inferior and the European presence superior. Before this time, blacks coming from Africa through the transatlantic slave trade story never existed. As a result, Melville's work has been fragmented and used as propaganda by writers like Harold Colander. You remember I told you all about Harold Colander, the European lower level Freemason that wrote the book The African that Alex Haley plagiarized, further perpetuated the myth of the transatlantic slave trade through the hit movie Roots. Americans were black people and they were not brought here on ships. Instead, they were enslaved right here on their own lands. And if they were brought here on ships, the numbers are extremely exaggerated. It was published that 15 million to 20 million slaves arrived in America between 1540 and 1850 over a 310-year period. So according to U.S. history books, the Stuart synopsis points out a few questions that should be examined. Over a period of 300 years, it is fair to say that 60,000 slaves were transported annually to the Americas, or or has the transportation of slaves to Americas been one big myth? The largest seagoing vessel carried 400 slaves, but not all of the ships were that big. Time of passage was 3 to 4 months. That means 200 vessels. Ships per year would have to travel carrying 300 people. One ship could make 3 passages per year. The transatlantic slave trade database says that there were 1,100 to 1,400 voyages made over a 300-year period. So if that's the case, each ship carried 400 people. So the total number would be 560,000 Africans were transported. And the number don't add up still. You already know that over 83% of all Americans with African ancestry have Native American Indian blood, or Native American blood, excuse me. So did the Native American tribes help slaves escape, or were Americans with African ancestry already part of the Native American nations? Think about this. After 20 years, the Royal Adventurer, with its 15 ships, had transported between 90,000 and 100,000 slaves. It's a long way from 15 million to 20 million slaves who were supposedly brought to the Americas. Doesn't that leave a bit over 14 million to 19 million people not accounted for a family? Or is it that the misnomer black people, the brown people, your birth rate, it was more accelerated than others? The calculated median of 15 to 20 million would be 17.5 million divided by 400 people. The larger slave vessels, that comes out to 43,750 trips. There's no record of that many trips that occurred, or the number of trips calculated by the so-called experts. Even when you see that slave ship with all those so-called people laid out, 27,000 to 35,000 voyages, the same thing happened with the Holocaust in Germany. 6 million people were supposedly killed, but there ain't that many names referenced who died, totaling 6 million. No disrespect. I just research things. This is my craft. It's no disrespect. In fact, the official story has reduced the number to under 1 million people. The Stewart synopsis lists these black native tribes: the Washita of Louisiana, the Midwest, the Yamanese of Southeast, Iroquois, the Cherokee Indians, the Blackfoot Indians, the Pequot and the Mohegans of Connecticut, the Black Californians. Californians literally means black, after the name of the great Mama Kali, Queen Khalifa, the Olmecs of Mexico, and the Daranite of Panama. 4.25 million African slave ships to Brazil and Mexico. The story goes over the course of 300 years from the 16th to the 19th century. The Brazil imported around 4 million slaves, some 40% of the total transatlantic slave trade. The overwhelming majority came from the former Portuguese colony of Angola, located in the Atlantic coast of southern Africa. On July 9th, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, it's called UNESCO, named Valongo Wharf a World Heritage Site, along with North England's Lake District. It was there that as many as 900,000 enslaved African men, women, and children were held before being sold on the Brazilian slave market. Y'all know that? Those who didn't survive the ordeal, who died during the transatlantic journey or sometime after, arrived at the wharf, the WHARF. Research this. They were buried in mass graves nearby. Research what she's saying. This real history so your kids can talk about it. Mexico claims African slaves as well. A total of 186,766 Africans were imported into Mexico during the 300 years of the Spanish slave trade. Looking at the appearance of modern Mexicans, it becomes clear that the now just made up the number without any proof of evidence of veracity, of the veracity of these claims. There is no way 186,766,000 black-skinned Mongolians could be responsible for the pigmented side of well over 1 million light and dark-skinned mestizos. The American Negro or Indian or Blackmore or Mongolian Tartarian is the oldest man on Earth. The oldest chromosome on Earth was found in a man from South Carolina as an unrelated to African lineage. There are more pyramids in the Americas than anywhere else. So I just wanted to set that precedent. You know, I hope everyone learned something from what we were saying today. I hope everyone subscribed to our Temple and School YouTube page at the Burning Bush Tabernacle Science Temple and School. You know, but I challenge you to get this book from us. It's not an expensive book. It's only a few dollars on Amazon. But if you get with me a small donation, I'll send it right to your email. You can go to Office Max or Staples and print it and bind it. You'll always have the book. That's one thing about having ebooks and things. You can always have it, no matter if you let someone borrow your hard book, your hard copy, which I never recommend because you're never going to get it back. But when you have ebooks, you can take it with you everywhere, and you can always have it printed, and you can always have us printed. So, thank y'all for your time. Everyone, always, y'all know y'all got my information. Y'all know how to get with me. Subscribe to our Temple and School YouTube page at Burning Bush Tabernacle, Science Temple and School. Send me an email, Goodman, GOODMANKHARY @gmail.com. Hit me up, man. Like I said, anybody that have it on their heart to give donations, I always give literature, but I want you to come to class. I want you to learn something. I want you to learn who you are and about our finances and how we can use our finances to build our infrastructure. And you can hold me accountable like anything else. So thank y'all for your time once again, family and friends. And I'll see y'all at the next time. Any questions? Anybody got anything they want to share? If not, like I said, once again, it's always a pleasure to use this platform to just cast our net out to brothers and sisters like myself and others that's willing to learn, that's willing to put some effort into the change. And we are the change, and we are the future. And the future is right now. So peace, light, illumination.